Hi folks, HR Funk here. Since at least 1926, there have been efforts to update and improve the classic 1911 pistol design, and for several years now we have had the so-called 2011 pistols with us. But I've got to say that even though they've gotten more and more popular as time has gone on, I've always been kind of lukewarm to the 2011 pistol concept, and there are a couple of different reasons for that. One is that they are typically pretty expensive, and the other reason is that I have always viewed the 2011 pistols more as competition-oriented in nature, and my focus on handguns has always been more on those intended for defensive use. And up until now, that's pretty much kept me from looking into the 2011 pistols, but I think I'm finally ready to look at one, and this is a brand new one for 2024. What I have with me here today is a brand new model from Turkish manufacturer Tisas, and this is their 1911 double stack carry pistol. And as you'll see when we get into this review, there's still a lot of classic 1911 in this design, but there are also some pretty radical departures. So for those of you purists out there, you might not be real crazy to see this, but I thought it was interesting enough that I wanted to review it, and I want to say thank you very much to House of Pain Armament for loaning me this pistol. I was in there yesterday and saw it hanging on the wall, and they were gracious enough to let me bring it home for this review. They also provided the ammunition that I'll be using later on when we get out to the range, because I am going to be doing some shooting with this new Tisas pistol and see how it performs. So let's get into the shop review for now, then we'll head out to the range in a little bit. So as usual, we will kick off the up-close shop review the way you bring the handgun home from the store, which is in the box. And from the top down in the box, we have a bicycle lock, an owner's manual, cleaning gear, the handgun itself. It comes with 2 magazines. Thank you, Tisas. A lot of you know that I really don't like it when there's only 1 magazine that comes with a handgun. There is a chamber flag, and there is also a tool for disassembling the pistol. So all this comes with your handgun along with a very nice lockable case. Turning our attention to the pistol itself, this is the Tisas model B9R-DS. The DS is for double stack. This is part of the Tisas carry line, so this is also known as the 1911 Carry DS. Now you might be able to tell by looking, this is a commander length pistol. There is another version in the Tisas lineup that is the full length 5-inch version, both of which are chambered for the 9mm cartridge. In terms of dimension, this one has an overall length of 7.9 inches, a height of 5.76 inches, a width of 1.5 inches, and a weight of 29.9 ounces unloaded. And here I've turned the pistol around to give you a view of the port side. Now, as I mentioned in the opening, these handguns are priced considerably lower than the 2011 style pistols that we have seen on the market for a while. Currently, as of winter of 2024, the Carry DS has an MSRP of $799. By the way, that's also the same MSRP as the full-size 5-inch version, and that pistol is known as the Duty. So this is the Carry, and the full-size pistol is the 1911 Duty DS. Now, as I mentioned, both versions of the 2011 pistols that Tisas is currently offering are chambered for the 9mm cartridge. The Carry model has the commander length 4¼ inch barrel, and that barrel is button rifled with a 1-turn and 10-inch right-hand rifling twist. And we'll start the top-down look at the Carry DS with the sights. The front sight, as you can see, is a post with a white dot. The rear sight is completely blacked out. There are no dots of any kind, although it is serrated to keep down on glare. And there, if I can get the front sight to focus, there we go, is the sight picture for the Carry DS. Both the front and rear sight are dovetailed into the slide, so if you need to make windage adjustments, you can do so. Now, the front sight dovetail is a Tisas cut, but the rear sight has the same dimensions as Glock pistols. So if you want to replace this rear sight, anything that would be appropriate for a Glock will be accommodated by the Tisas slide. So you're going to have a wide variety of replacement sights if you want to use something different. Also, as you can see, the 1911 Carry DS is optics ready, and the optic cut in the slide is appropriate for Shield RMSC or Holosun 507K sights. And they are direct mount to the slide, so there is no adapter plate or anything like that that's necessary. And once you mount those sights to the pistol, They allow for a lower 1/3 co-witness of the mechanical sights. Moving on to the slide itself, this part is machined from 4140 steel, and Tisas for years now has been using forged and machined slides and frames on their handguns, and this pistol is no departure from that. We can see that both front and rear cocking serrations are machined into the slide, and the finish on the slide is QPQ, which, as I understand it, is the modern day designation for what we used to call melanite or tenifer or whatever. In any case, this is a very durable, very rust and corrosion resistant finish on the slide. The hammer, as you can see here, is the skeletonized commander style hammer. This handgun does have, if I can get it to lock back, a GI style recoil system. A lot of you know that I prefer that. I'm not a big fan of the full-length guide rods, and neither this one nor the full-length duty version have a full-length guide rod. So I'm happy to have the simple 1911 design that I am used to working with. And that's one of the places where I was talking about earlier in the video where you definitely do see the traditional 1911 design that is embodied in this handgun. The thumb safety that you see here is an ambidextrous unit, and this is sort of a low profile thumb safety, and I've mentioned this before. This is something that I like because on the off side I don't have that safety coming down against my trigger finger and bothering me while I'm shooting. So I like the safety that Tisas uses, and this is one that some other manufacturers should consider using as well, because I've had some of those safeties that do come down and do annoy me when I'm shooting because I can feel it against my trigger finger. The slide stop is a GI unit that you see here, and on the off side it is recessed into the frame to keep that from being inadvertently pressed, especially if you are a left-handed shooter using a thumbs forward hold. I've never experienced this, but I'm not a left-hand shooter. Apparently it is possible to press against that as you're shooting and potentially cause a malfunction with the pistol when you push the slide stop out on the opposite side. The grip safety is the upswept extended beaver tail style that you see there. It has the raised portion at the bottom, the so-called memory bump, to help make sure that that is properly disengaged while you're shooting. So I like that. It feels good. And one of the things that I notice with the wider grip is that I seem to get a more positive disengagement of the grip safety. So that's one thing, even though for carry purposes that's going to be possibly a negative because you can see how wide the grip is there. But at least in terms of shooting, it feels like I'm getting a much better depression on that rear portion of the grip safety. The forward portion of the frame, aka the dust cover, has a 3-slot equipment rail that you can see there. As we move back, we see the front of the trigger guard is squared off, and it's also textured on the front. This is checkered very finely right there. So if you're someone who prefers to have your offside finger in front of the trigger guard, that's going to help maintain good contact there. The bottom of the trigger guard here is recessed slightly and then recessed again to help get a good high grip on the pistol. And as we move back into this area, I want to point out for anyone that doesn't know, this is a grip module. So this part is polymer, even though the frame itself up here is forged machined steel. So keep that in mind as we go. This part is not the standard 1911 design with the removable grip panels and all that. This is all one unit, so all the texturing and everything you can see is molded in. There is what I would call a medium texturing on what would typically be the grip panel area of a standard 1911. There is also 25 line per inch checkering on the back strap and the front strap of this pistol, all of which I would say gives medium purchase or a medium feel. This is not extremely aggressive texturing on the grip, but it's enough there that I can feel it. So if you like the really, really aggressive texturing to try to make sure that your handgun is locked into your grasp, this is probably not going to do it. It's got kind of a plasticky feel to it, but there is definitely something there, and I'm not worried about this coming out of my hands when I'm shooting or anything else. Here you can see the magazine release for the Carry 1911 DS, and it is extended somewhat from what we would typically see with a GI 1911, but curiously there is no texturing, checkering, or anything else on the magazine release itself. Now it works just fine, I don't have a problem releasing the magazine, but I'm just a little surprised there's not something on there to give you a little bit more traction for your thumb during a magazine change. We can also see what I would call a semi-skeletonized trigger there, and this is a medium length trigger, and we'll weigh this in a little bit, but I can tell you at this point in the video that it feels pretty good. Not bad at all. I'm looking forward to getting out on the range and seeing just what I can do with this handgun with that trigger pull. The magazines for the Carry DS are manufactured by Checkmate, and these are 17-round double-stack magazines that you can see here. They have witness holes in the back for 5 rounds, 10 rounds, and 17 rounds. And these are STI pattern magazines. So if you want to get extra magazines for your pistol, you don't have to get them from Tisas. You can use STI magazines or anything else that follows that pattern for 2011 style pistols. And the final feature of the Carry DS that I'll point out is visible right here. This is an aluminum magazine well intended to aid in fast reloads, and this part is removable. So if you don't care for it or you want to reduce the length of the grip or what have you, you can take this off. Disassembly of the Carry DS is standard GI 1911, which makes me happy. No tools are required or anything else to field strip your pistol for cleaning and maintenance. And I wanted to take an opportunity to show you the machining. And I want to get a good focus on here because I was very impressed when I looked inside of this pistol at just how clean everything is in terms of the machining. And I'm going to grab the slide here in a moment and give you a look at that as well. These are Series 70 style pistols, so there is no firing pin block. You'll note that is absent from the slide here. There is a titanium firing pin, so for anyone that's worried about being drop safe or anything, you do have that to prevent that particular problem. This pistol uses an internal extractor that's difficult to see, but it's right there. Might be a little easier to see at that point. And again, I just thought the machining inside here was all very good. Here's a look at the barrel. And I probably won't be able to get you a look through the barrel that's going to allow you to see the rifling. I'll see what I can do. Maybe that's not too bad. Obviously, this is a ramped 1911 barrel, which we typically see with 1911 pistols that are chambered for the 9mm cartridge. If you saw my recent comparison that I made with the Tisas Stingray and a Springfield Armory Ronin, you know that I completely disassembled that handgun and there were no MIM parts that I could find in the Stingray whatsoever, and I suspect that there are no MIM parts whatsoever in this handgun either. I'm not going to completely disassemble it, but Tisas has come out and said that they have quit using MIM parts in their handguns, so I have no reason to believe that there are any contained inside the Carry DS. And as you can see, the Carry DS is reassembled and placed in the vise so we can check the trigger pull weight. And I've got the Lyman trigger pull gauge all ready to go here. Tisas rates these triggers at about 4 3/4 pounds. And this one feels a little lighter than that. Well, actually, that broke at 4 pounds, 15.2 ounces. So maybe that's right about where they rated it. It felt lighter than that to me when I was working with the pistol earlier. Let's try a second pull. 4 pounds, 13.5 ounces. And we'll try one more here and see if we can get a 3-pull average. And that one was a little bit heavier, 5 pounds, 0.3 ounces. For a 3-pull average of 4 pounds, 15.0 ounces. So it is weighing a little heavier than I thought it was going to. In terms of trigger pull quality, feels pretty good. In fact, it does not feel like a 5-pound trigger. Try to see if I can detect any creep whatsoever. Just a touch. If I'm applying pressure very slowly, there is just the slightest amount of creep and a tiny amount of over travel, but overall that trigger feels good. And that's going to do it for the up-close shop review. Now let's head out to the range and see how this new Tisas double stack carry 1911 pistol performs. So here we go, folks. I have arrived at the range. In just a couple of minutes, I'm going to start to shoot the Carry DS and see what kind of performance we can get from it. The first test is going to be an accuracy drill from a distance of 15 yards. I'll be shooting from bags. The ammunition I'm going to use to start the test is going to be House of Pain Munitions 147 grain 9mm poly round nose ammo. This is a poly coated bullet. And so far I've had very good luck with this ammunition. Hopefully that will continue today. And let's get right to it and see how it's going to perform out of the Tisas Carry DS. All right, let's take a walk down range and see how we did. So I've got 4 out of those 5 shots that are in right about 1 inch center to center, and 1 shot that I pulled low. I'm sure this was just me. One thing I should have mentioned before I started that test is I'm beginning with the magazine loaded with 17 rounds and 1 in the chamber. So along with checking accuracy through this drill, I'm also testing the functioning of the pistol. Now I'm going to switch over to a different type of ammunition and repeat this test and see how it does with that. Next up is going to be a Nosler 124 grain jacketed hollow point. This is a match rated load. So let's see how it does out of the Carry DS. All right, let's go down range and take a look at those 5 shots. It looks like I closed things up a little bit with the Nosler ammo. I'd have to measure that, but that's probably 1.5 inches maybe for all 5 shots. Now I don't have a nice tight cluster like I do with 4 shots over here. This is spread out a little bit more horizontally, but it's pretty well centered in the target. So all in all, I'm pretty happy with that accuracy that I'm getting from the Carry DS. Now let's move on to some other things. And on we go, folks. I'm going to try some controlled pairs from a distance of 5 yards. And I'm back to that House of Pain 147 grain poly ammo now. Let's see how it does on this drill. I think the pistol and the ammo are doing fine. The shooter, on the other hand, is throwing a couple of shots low and to the left. So on we go to some 7-yard failure drills, folks, and I'm going to slow my shot tempo down a little bit on these. I might have been trying to shoot too fast from 5 yards, and I was pulling a couple of shots low and to the left. Let's see what happens here. So my body shots are looking better that time for all 3 of those failure drills. My first headshot, I again pulled low and to the left. I think this is a get acquainted issue for me in this handgun. I don't think this is a handgun problem. The second 2 times through, I have very good headshots. No problems with either one of those at all. So let's back off now to 15 yards and we'll see what happens from there. So I'm now back to 15 yards, and when you see the target, you'll see that I covered up the shot holes in the body from the first two drills with some blue stickers. Let's see what happens from back here. All right, let's go down range and take a look at those. Not bad from 15 yards. Everything is in the right lung. That whole group is maybe 4 inches, maybe just a little bit more. Again, I've got 4 out of the 5 shots that are probably in just over 2 inches, maybe 2.5, and then that one opens it up. But again, shooting from 15 yards, that shot tempo, I'm not feeling too bad. And I'm now back to a distance of 25 yards. And again, I have covered up the previous shot holes with some blue stickers. And what I'm going to do from here, since I've been hitting consistently to the left as I've been shooting this handgun, I'm going to favor the right side of the target. In fact, I'm going to aim about the middle of the target's left lung, the right lung as you're looking at it, and we'll see where these shots go. Also going to slow down the shot tempo just a little bit. All right, again, let's walk down range and see where they hit. And for the most part, I'm pretty happy with that shooting from 25 yards. I've got 2 shots in the middle of the heart, 1 shot in the right lung, and well, actually the left lung, and 1 shot in the right lung just off the heart, and then 1 shot that I pulled low. And I think I know what's going on here. I'll talk about it in my final thoughts. Again, I think this is me. This is not the pistol. I think this is the pistol here, although I was holding about here for those shots, so definitely that rear sight needs a couple of taps to the right just to bring that into the center of the target. All right, folks, moment of truth. Is the Tisas brand new 1911 Carry DS a 7-yard tack driver? I've got a tack in the target. I've got 3 rounds loaded up in the magazine. So let's find out. Couldn't tell from back there. It looked like the tack was still in the target. Yes, on the first shot, the Tisas 1911 Carry DS is a 7-yard tack driver. So final thoughts on the new Tisas 1911 Carry DS. I've got several things that I want to say about this handgun. First off, I think this is the softest shooting 1911 that I have ever fired. Now, it is a 9mm, but I've got some other 9mm 1911s that I've shot over time, and this one is just extremely, extremely soft shooting. It feels, I don't know, not like a 22. Everybody uses the comparison to a 20. Oh, it feels like shooting a 22. No, it doesn't feel like a 22. It feels like more than that. But not a lot more than that. And I think part of what's causing me a problem with some of these shots is I come up and I fire the pistol, and it seems like it's hardly moved, so I'm starting my trigger press again and actually not taking the time to get a really good sight picture. And maybe I'm even getting a little bit of a push or a little bit of a jerk and pulling those shots low and to the left, which is pretty typical for a right-hand shooter. So I think that's part of it. I think those shots that are off are me. Now the rear sight needs a little bit of attention, which I mentioned a couple of minutes ago. These shots are consistently hitting to the left. It needs to be moved to the right. Although if you put an optic on this handgun, then that would negate any issues with the sights whatsoever. So it might be fun to try it with an optic just to see how much difference that would make. I think I'm so used to the classic 1911, the GI style 1911 and all that, that this just feels odd to me. The grip is, and by the way, I did clear this, so nothing in it from when I was shooting. The grip being as wide as it is, I don't know, it feels like the whole thing is throwing me off. Now this is a me problem. This is a get acquainted with the handgun problem. it's not really a criticism of this pistol. If you're a 2011 shooter, or if you're someone that's maybe not as much of a 1911 shooter as I am, and you started shooting this, you'd probably think it felt fantastic and you'd want to keep shooting it over and over and over again. And that soft shooting quality for a competitive shooter, particularly where you're wanting to keep from having too much muzzle rise and get follow-up shots on target as fast as you can, is fabulous. Now, the 5-inch version of this would probably be even that much more softer shooting, because it would have a little bit more weight out at the end of the pistol to help mitigate that muzzle rise even more. So there's nothing wrong with this handgun. It's a nice handgun. It was perfectly reliable with 2 different types of ammunition. One of them was a hollow point. The other was the poly round nose, so no functioning issues whatsoever. Everything worked the way it was supposed to. The safeties all worked the way they were supposed to. And by the way, that quality of the grip that I talked about back in the shop, where it feels like I'm getting a good positive disengagement of the grip safety, continued out here too. I never gave that even a second thought as I was coming up to shoot. Maybe if I had a couple of white dots on the back sight, that would help me some. I've talked about that before. I'm just more used to that sighting system, so maybe that's contributing to this too. But again, this is me that you're seeing in those shots that are going off. This is not a criticism of the handgun. Again, the handgun itself seems pretty nice. That trigger, for being nearly 5 pounds, feels pretty good when I'm shooting my way through the drills. It's not feeling heavy. I don't feel like that's causing me any issues with the accuracy or anything else. So I think what I'll say at the end of this part of the video, and this might not be the end with this pistol for me. I might need to hold on to this and work with it some and see what happens when I acclimate to it a little bit more. I think right now what I'll say is this isn't quite the handgun for me. That doesn't mean it's not quite the handgun for you. Again, the functioning was absolutely perfect. There were no reliability issues whatsoever. The mechanical accuracy looks pretty decent from what I could tell. It's just me getting used to shooting it that's causing a problem. And that's the video for today, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, if you purchase anything from Optics Planet, be sure to use my discount code, which is... And if you use that discount code, it'll save you 7% off your purchase from Optics Planet. Also, remember the discount code from House of Pain, and thank you to House of Pain for loaning me this handgun for the review and also supplying some of the ammunition that I used out here on the range today. If you go to House of Pain, either House of Pain Armament or House of Pain Munitions, you can use my discount code there, which is HRFUNK10, and that'll save you some money from your purchase from House of Pain. And don't forget the Target sponsor. Again, this was one of their targets out here today. Go to Targets online, check out their inventory, and see if they have anything that's going to meet your target needs. See you next time, folks. And until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.